Hi everybody, I'm Jared Pike. This is Shell Point Today for Monday, July 1st. On today's show, we look forward to Independence Day, as Adrian Kerr previews his month-long focus on the early history of the United States. We'll also reminisce about the USO, as we look forward to the USO Show coming to Shell Point for July 4th. But first, today is the first day of the month, and you know what that means. It's time to sign up for events and activities in July. Peruse your July issue of Shell Point Life magazine and, starting at 8:15, call or visit the Island or Woodland service desks and sign up for your favorites. July also means that several Shell Point facilities will be closed for the summer. The Cafe Promenade is now closed, retooling their menu for next season. They will reopen on Tuesday, August 27th. The Shell Point Garage is now closed for their summer vacation. Your favorite auto service technicians will return to normal business hours on Monday, July 22nd. The Stamp Room remains open all year, but the Woodlands Stamp Group is on hiatus for the rest of the summer. They'll reconvene once more on Tuesday, August 6th. The Social Center is closed for renovation. So, all social center events have been relocated until its reopening near the end of this month. And finally, the Island Swimming Pool is now closed for demolition and construction of the new Aquatic Center. For the rest of the year, swimmers can use the Island Health Club Pool, the Woodlands Pool, or the Eagles Preserve Pool. July 1st also marks a new policy for the U.S. mail and packages delivered to Shell Point. Now, this can get a little tricky, so pay close attention. The Postal Service has declared that they cannot deliver packages into the big drawers underneath the mailbox clusters. So, from now on, all packages will be delivered to the resident's door. That sounds like good news, right? Well, what if you're not home? Then a number of different options kick in. If it's a simple package that doesn't need a signature and doesn't seem to have items of obvious value that can't be left outside, then the package will be left by your front door. Now, if the items do appear to have obvious value or a signature is required and you're not home, then Shell Point will sign for them and hold the packages at the Island or Woodland service desk. They'll notify you, at which point you have up to 15 days to claim your package before it gets sent back to the nearest post office, which is on 6 Mile Cypress. Once again, this only applies to packages sent through the U.S. Postal Service. FedEx and UPS have their own rules about delivery. But from now on, packages sent through the Postal Service will no longer show up in the drawer underneath your mailbox, but rather will be delivered to your door or to the service desk to be picked up later. Now, if you have any questions about this policy, call the Island Service Desk at 454-2282 or the Woodland Service Desk at 454-2054. Well, enough about U.S. mail policy. Let's talk about U.S. history. It seems ideal that we talk about the history of our nation during its birthday month. Our country turns 237 years old on Thursday, and to celebrate, we invited history professor Adrian Kerr to go all the way back, starting with the native tribes of the Americas, through European colonization, and finally through the Revolutionary War and the establishment of an independent nation. It's a month-long journey through the history of the United States, and it all starts tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the Grand Cypress Room at the Woodlands. Terry Colette has this preview.
Hello, everyone. I'm here with Professor Adrian Kerr, my favorite historian, and he is going to take us on a jaunt through the month of July, American history. Thanks for joining me, Adrian.
Thank you, Terry. It's always a pleasure to be back.
And we're going to start the first Tuesday in July, and we're going to, every Tuesday, get deeper into U.S. history. Now, you're coming at this from 2 points of view, aren't you?
Yes, I'm coming at it from the point of view of being a UK-born citizen, but also a US naturalized citizen, so I wear both hats, hopefully trying to be objective. But in doing the research for the talks, it became fascinating to me how much we have learnt, we think we've learnt during our high school education, which we actually remember incorrectly. And so throughout the series of talks, I will enjoy pointing out things that are commonly accepted as factual today, which in fact were not so.
And there's no basis of proof for them.
The basis of proof is clear, but our minds twist things over the years into making what seems like a sensible conclusion. The Tea Party the Tea Party in Boston is probably the most famous example of how we have completely absorbed the wrong emphasis on that event.
Fascinating. Okay, so we're starting with the original dwellers in North America. We're starting at the very beginning here, and we're going forward to 1815. What is your favorite part?
I think the most romantic part for me is the period which we call the French and Indian War, which was the precursor for the War of Independence. In fact, the two things are heavily integrated. But Fenimore Cooper's book, The Last of the Mohicans, was a great read. It's still a great read. And they made a wonderful movie out of it with Daniel Day-Lewis. And which I would recommend you to watch. It's called The Last of the Mohicans, and it captures the spirit of colonial America. It captures in the book and in the movie what it was like to live on the frontier in that time, and the different challenges for survival, the local native population, the colonial powers of the British and the French and their conflict, the beginnings of a need to be seen as a separate country, and if you like, that's the cauldron out of which America became a nation.
It's always fascinated me. I mean, just imagine, having been a wife and mother with a small child, if my husband had said, let's get in a wagon and go across the country. I mean, imagine the people that helped to create this country. The spirit of adventure, not knowing at all what was going to happen. Lewis and Clark. It's fascinating.
There are two different energy sources which provided this drive to colonize the whole of North America. The first one, and probably the most important for the early days, was the fact that the colonial government, although much maligned by the independence movement, had a magic ingredient. If you were an English person, a farmer or a peasant working on the land, you had zero chance of ever leveraging yourself out of being a serf and having to work for somebody else. You were never going to be able to afford just money to buy land. So here are these disaffected, excluded individuals in England who suddenly get a ticket to go to this strange place across the sea. Their passage is paid for 7 years' servitude, acting as a farm labourer. After that period, the colonies would give you a piece of land, and you could then buy more land. And so you'd trade off 6 or 7 years of hard work for finally getting a piece of America. And this was the driving force for people to take the risk, the trouble of crossing the ocean, going to a new world, native people who are less than friendly, disease, starvation, cold weather, all these things. You had to balance that with this desperate desire to own a piece of land. And North America is so different from South America, in that the South American colonization, which was Spanish-driven by noblemen, they didn't have that concept at all. So you could move from Spain to Colombia or Venezuela, and you'd still be a paid worker. You were never, ever going to get the piece of land that the North American colonists could, and that was one of the driving forces.
That explains a lot.
In fact, people write books today on why is North America so hugely successful, and yet South America has all the issues that it does. And they make the connection in that the North American people had a stake in their country, had a stake in their future. The South Americans were just paid farmers, putting it very simply.
And what's the other?
The other is this endless amount of land. So when you've occupied the eastern seaboard and the colonies then become a nation, then it's that spread westward. And of course it's a similar drive to get land that nobody else owns. And they did that at huge risk to their families and their wagon trains and so on. And it's amazing that they made so much progress so quickly.
Right. Well, I just think that it's a wonderful way to celebrate America in the month of July. We start with the 4th of July, and we have every Tuesday morning to have you link things up for us as only you can do it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Every Tuesday morning in July, U.S. history. Join us.
Of course, Shell Point has its own unique way of celebrating Independence Day, and because this is Shell Point, you know it involves food and music. This Thursday's Independence Day celebration is a USO theme. We'll be serving red, white, and blue desserts, including apple cobbler with vanilla ice cream. We'll also present a free concert featuring trumpeter Charlie Raymond, playing the music of Harry James. And the three-part harmonies of the Apple Blossoms will take you back to a time when the Andrews sisters were on the top of the charts. Tickets for the concert and the food are free if you're a Shell Point resident. And you can also get tickets for outside guests and family members for just $5. So visit the service desk and get your tickets today. Now, a few years ago, we asked residents to share their memories of the USO. Some of you were soldiers who enjoyed the USO as a welcome respite. Others were more closely involved with the performers as they traveled around the world. All this week, we'll be hearing some of these USO anecdotes. Today, we'll hear from one guy who found love at the USO and one not so much. Here are their stories.
I was in the service, Sampson Air Force Base. One of the other instructors told me that he was going up to Rochester to the USO to see if he could see some chicks. And so would I like to go? And I said I sure would like to go.
My girlfriend, who lived in the same building, decided to go to the USO. And I always went home for the weekend. And she talked me into staying. So we went to the USO, and we had to go in and have a class first. And when I came out, I said, I can't dance, I'm going home. And he was at the door.
We walked in, and there were two girls walking toward us. One was very attractive, the other was tall and skinny and not attractive. And I gave my friend Frank the elbow and said, I don't like yours, and made as direct a beeline as I could for what turned out to be Eva. And we talked them, they were on their way out, and we talked them into sticking around, and we spent the evening, as you do in a USO, playing games and dancing and talking.
I had to go home for my sister's wedding in December, and of course he hadn't called, so I was waiting. Thinking,
What do you mean, of course I hadn't called?
He hadn't called, so I was waiting. And he called while I was home and said, do you want to go out for New Year's Eve? And I had just told my mother that I met a wonderful guy.
Oh man. We were married on May 30th of 53.
It'll be 58 years in May.
There's got to be a lesson in there, I think.
Well, keep your eyes open and go for the cute one.
I joined the service December 7th, 1942, 1 year after Pearl Harbor. Went to radio school at Miami University, Oxford, Ohio, where we had civilian instructors. We ended up in what was a place called OP-20G, highly secret unit that spent its whole time sinking the German U-boats, telling the Navy where they were so they could go find them. And that is what I did for World War II. Winter Harbor, Maine was one of the key bases of our secret division. We were 60 miles from Bangor. That was a near civilization, and wonderful place, wonderful people, and colder than a hoot owl. And somebody decided it would be wonderful to throw a party for the USO girls. And so they arranged for a bus for them. They brought them out there. And they spent hours fixing the dining room up immaculate. All the food was set out. And the girls came out and we danced a little bit. And then they took him into the dining room because they had decorated, they had the lights all off. And they flipped on the lights. And everything was there, except also about 1,000 bugs on top of all the food. And there was a large screaming. The girls ran for the bus. They've never been seen again. And that was the end of the so-called party. We went back to visit, and I wanted to get on a base, and they said, you can't get on. I said, well, I'm 312-8032, my sir. He said, it won't do. I said to the commander, and it was a commander on the phone of the base that it was talking to. I says, do you still have that wooden barracks? Do you still have cockroaches? And he said, you get your butt out here. That was clearance enough.
We'll have more stories from the USO all this week, including personal encounters with celebrities like Bob Hope and Glenn Miller. So stay tuned for that. Also, don't miss our own USO Show this Thursday, July 4th, starting at 2 p.m. in the church auditorium. Get your free tickets at either service desk. Well, David Howenstein is in the patriotic spirit as his radio show brings us these stories.
This week's Listening to the Word show is all about Independence Day, USA. From the first fireworks in Philadelphia in 1777 to this week's reopening of the Statue of Liberty. You'll hear the stories behind two of George M. Cohan's most popular patriotic songs. And the song Irving Berlin wrote in 1918 and later gave to Kate Smith to introduce to the American people in 1938. You'll also enjoy hearing a 4th of July in Lima, Ohio excerpt from Duke Murray's book, Come Reminisce With Me. And you'll hear the words John Adams wrote to his wife Abigail after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, forecasting pomp and parade, shows, bells, bonfires, and illuminations for our Independence Day. David Howenstein inviting you to tune in Shell Point TV Channel 13 any hour of any day this week and listen to the words and music of your 4th of July.
Welcome everybody to the happening segment of Shell Point TV. I'm Bev Chanley, this is Suzanne Savada, and we're going to go over what's going on at Shell Point today. But before we start, it is July 1st, and that means it's Monday sign-up day. Activities will be able to be signed up for at either service desk, or you can call in if you have some selections you want to sign up for. We're going to start out the morning activities at 9 o'clock with the food pantry work going on. That'll be at the Village Church. They do need volunteers. Also at 9 o'clock we have round-robin men's doubles tennis down at the Woodlands tennis courts. 9:15 we have billiards being played in the activity center. Also at 9:15 we have pottery with instruction available down in the pottery studio on the island. Our last 9:15 activity is virtual bowling that takes place in the resident activity center. At 10:15 Parkinson's Enrichment Group will be in the hospitality room of the Village Church. We'll move on to 10:30, where the Disciple Men's Bible Study Group will be in the game room at the Woodlands. 10:45 is the time for table tennis. That'll be down in the Tarpon Room. This is a clinic. And then at 11:30 we have our last morning activity, Health Connections class, specifics in strength training, and that will be in the Health Club. Currently that is full. Here's Suzanne for the afternoon lineup.
Thanks, Bev. We'll start our afternoon off at 12 o'clock with Mahjong being played in the stable room at the Woodlands. At 1:15 we have Scrabble in the Library Lounge on the island, and also at 1:15 we have table tennis in the Tarpon Room on the island. At 1:45 we have a Health Connections, Balance and Mobility Training Level 1 in the Health Club on the island, and this is closed. At 2 o'clock the Beady-Eyed Bead Club will be meeting in the Oak Room at the Woodlands. And at 3 o'clock we have another Health Connections, Pilates Stretch in the Health Club on the island. 6:30 is the time for duplicate bridge in the game room at the Woodlands. And at 7 o'clock, we have square dancing in the health club on the island. We hope you have a wonderful Monday, and we look forward to seeing you back here on Tuesday.
Hello, everyone. I'm Terry Colette, and I'm here to talk about what is happening in the Academy of Lifelong Learning for today, Monday, July 1st. At 9:30, we have Beyond Basic Photography in the Grand Cypress Room of the Woodlands. Sign-up is required. At 10:15, the Anatomy of Words group continues in the Buttonwood Room of the Woodlands, and all are welcome. Tomorrow, we start a new class, The History of the United States to 1815. Professor Adrian Kerr will provide 5 sessions on the history of the United States every Tuesday morning in July.
Menus for Monday. In the Crystal Room, the Crystal Platter is chicken chili in a bread bowl with fried green beans. The dinner special is home cooking night for $9.95, and the soup of the day is tomato. In the Island Cafe for lunch, enjoy an Italian sausage on a sub roll with fries for $6.95. For dinner, you can have grilled tilapia over mixed greens with fresh berries for $7.95. And the Palm Grill is closed on Mondays. All menus are available 24 hours a day at www.shellpoint.net.
Greetings and a warm welcome today to Village Church Connections. I'm here with Hal Hanson, who is a resident of Shell Point, and Hal is here to talk to me about a recent trip that you just took with the supervisor for housekeeping here at Shell Point, Joseph Julius.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that trip.
Joseph is a wonderful friend of mine, has been for many years. Mm-hmm. And of course, he was born in St. Mark, Haiti. Mm-hmm. So every time we go up there and we look at the school where we've been working for the last 6 years. The school is 40 years old, so the roof of the kindergarten was falling down. I mean, literally falling down. And Dan Budd from Sanibel just went over there and rebuilt the kitchen and the kindergarten, and they built restrooms thanks to the Rotary Club in Sanibel. They raised the money to put in modern restrooms, flush toilets. They're the only toilets on that whole mountain, let me tell you. Mm. But the school is very, very happy to have them. We had a great trip.
Sounds wonderful, and I'm sure that it was very exciting for Joseph to be able to be a part of that and see the school completed and all of that work done.
Yes.
And I know that you are excited about a number of things, particularly in the country of Haiti. Tell me about ICM. ICM
stands for International Cooperating Ministries. I listened to the founder, 91-year-old Presbyterian founder, Doris Rosser, at a church here in Fort Myers last November. And I listened to him tell stories about building churches all over the world. In 64 countries for 25 years, they have built 4,230 churches, orphanages, and Bible schools. The rules for ICM are they have to have a pastor, preferably a group of people. Then they have to have a lot paid for.
Okay.
That's the key thing.
Okay.
In every one of those 64 countries, they have a builder in place. And they send the money to the builder, and he builds the building, and then for 3 years has to send in reports. But I heard of that. I really couldn't believe it.
So you're very excited about that and working with that in the country of Haiti. I see you've brought a map here. Can you tell us a little bit what this represents?
Well, here's my map, and it shows the whole country, of course. But we have 35 requests from pastors who need to build a new church for their congregations. Now, all these churches that we build are going to have hope centers to feed hungry, hurting, and homeless Haitians, and they all need medical clinics for the sick. They all need clean water. They all need generators for electricity and restrooms. Haiti, as we all know, is the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. But, Glenda, I know it can happen.
Thank you, Harold, for sharing all of that with us. I know that you are especially looking forward to the future and some of what's going to take place. And I know that you're putting together a vision trip. Tell us about that.
Yes, we are. At the end of this year, or the beginning of 2014, we would like to take people and see it for themselves. It's one thing for me to show it and tell it with pictures. It's another thing to go to the tent cities and see thousands and thousands of people and their families still living in a tent with a leaky roof. That's another thing to see it. And then we would take them to visit our school in St. Mark. We would take them to visit the churches that we may build between now and then. We'll take them to CMA churches that the builder has built already. It should be a very, very interesting trip.
And if people want information, they can contact you, I
They
assume.
can call me at 481-1629.
Harold, thank you for joining me today, for sharing some of your heart for the country of Haiti, for building churches, and just for the needs of the people. We appreciate how you've allowed God to use you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today for Village Church Connections. Have a wonderful day.
We're glad you joined us for today's show. Tune in tomorrow as we show you what kind of TV you need to get the most out of the upcoming digital TV system at Shell Point. We'll also talk to some Shell Point couples who take advantage of the adult daycare service offered on the first floor of the Larson Pavilion. Until then, this is Shell Point Today for Monday, July 1st. I'm Jared Pike, and from all of us here at Shell Point TV, we hope you have a great day, and we'll see you again tomorrow.